Okay, so now we want to make sure that we can take symbolic form and understand what that actually says. All right, so we've got our two statements here. Joe has an iPad, that's P. Bree has a MacBook, that's Q. And the first thing we want to do is the negation of P. That tilde P is read not P. So if P is that Joe has an iPad and we want to do the negation, then not P would just be that Joe does not have an iPad. Okay, that's a simple statement, and all we're doing is creating a negation. All right, now in our second, we don't have any negations, but notice Q is coming first. All right, so Q is that Bree has a MacBook. All right, and then be careful about your symbols. The V is an or. And then P, again, no negation, would be that Joe has an iPad. Okay, we're just taking it one piece at a time to write it correctly. All right, now in our next example, we have two negations. So both statements are being negated, and we have a biconditional. All right, that's the if and only if. So not P, we did this one already, is that Joe does not have an iPad. Then comes the biconditional, if and only if. And then not Q, another negation, would be that Bree does not have a MacBook. Okay, and then the last one here, I want to make sure that you know when you have a negation and it applies to a compound statement, and you'll know that because the negation is out in front of parentheses, right? You have to make sure that you negate the whole thing, and you can't do that with just a simple not. And so what you do anytime that negation is out in front of a compound statement in parentheses is you just start this with it is not true. That, and then whatever's in parentheses. That's the only way that you can negate the whole thing. So I'm going to say it is not true that, and then what is in parentheses, right? It would be Q. All right, I've already done the negation, so I'm not going to negate. All right, in parentheses, it's just Q. All right, which is that Bree has a MacBook. And then again, we've got that or, all right, the V. And P, Joe has an iPad. So in other words, when the negation is out in front of parentheses, you can't like distribute it. You can't do it as a not Q or not P. That doesn't come out to have the correct truth values. So the only way you handle that when it's out in front of parentheses is by stating that the whole thing in parentheses is not true. That will negate the whole thing. Okay, so before we throw in an extra statement and we start looking at 3, I want you to do some practice with just 2. All right, so I've given you some additional practice problems for 3.1. These are going to have you take a statement in words and write it symbolically, and then take something in symbolic form and turn around and interpret that in words. Okay, so try those. Again, use the help tools if you need to. That's why I'm putting you in practice. And then once you feel pretty good about that, I want you to come back and watch my third video where we'll look at how to deal with more than 2 statements.